All right, our US correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease has been monitoring the meeting. He joins us now. Sherwin, thank you as always. So there were always limitations and perceived limitations in what the Council could do given Russia's status as a permanent member. Expectations were low, so then what were the main takeaways?
The veto-wielding nature of Russia's permanent status in the Council aside, Francis, there was a great deal of uncertainty this morning here in New York as to whether this meeting would actually go ahead, given that Russia later at the start of that meeting called for a procedural vote, essentially to have broad consensus among member states of the Security Council as to whether that meeting would in fact go ahead. The agenda was put to a vote, 10 Council members in favor, 2 against Russia and China siding with Russia, agreeing with Russia that they do not believe that the build-up of military troops and military hardware on that border with Ukraine is a threat to international peace and security. India, Gabon and Kenya abstaining in that vote. So the meeting went ahead, and 2 themes emerging, Francis: denial from the Russians that they intend to invade Ukraine, and of course accusations from countries led by the United States that this military build-up on that western border with Ukraine in Russia is a threat to international peace and security. They are of the view that a military escalation over Russia's European security concerns, their concerns about NATO's creep in Europe towards its territory, is a matter certainly of international concern to peace and security. So very divergent views that we are seeing playing itself out in the Council. You've got accusations from the United States, denials from the Russians, while the majority of Council members, including the person that spoke on behalf of the Secretary General, calling for diplomacy, for dialogue, for de-escalation and for calm heads amid these concerns of this military build-up, Francis.
So Russia denying and also disputing the number of troops on that border. But there is history here, given Moscow's previous annexation of Crimea in 2014. How's it explaining this all and trying to talk about those numbers and dispute the claims?
Yeah, despite the satellite evidence of this build-up, Russia is adamant that it has deployed troops within its own territory. That is the fundamental perspective here from Moscow's envoy, that it is not a threat to international peace and security because these troops are essentially deployed as they've been deployed in previous iterations within Russian territory. The Russian ambassador Vasily Nebenzia talking about how it is the United States that is engaged in military adventures in history that have killed hundreds of thousands of people, that it is in fact the United States that has used force against states without the authorization of the United Nations Security Council, and that the United States uses its arsenal of unilateral sanctions and coercive measures to act like a Supreme Court of the world in terms of imposing those punitive measures, or certainly the threats of those punitive measures, to get states to act in a manner that would be satisfying to Washington. This was Ambassador Nebenzia earlier. Let's watch.
In the statement of my American colleague, there was a significant hodgepodge of accusations of aggressive actions by Russia, but no specific fact given. Incidentally, I'd like to put a question not only to our US colleague, but also to those who said, where did you get the figure of 100,000 troops that are deployed, as you state, on the Russian-Ukrainian border, although that is not the case? We have never cited that figure. We've never confirmed that figure. We do recall this, and we recall this since Secretary of State Colin Powell in this very room waved around a vial with an unidentified substance as so-called evidence of the presence of WMDs in Iraq. They didn't find any weapons, but what happened with that country is well known to one and all.
So a hodgepodge, Francis, of accusations of aggressive actions by Russia. I'll tell you, the White House also releasing a statement from President Joe Biden a short time ago while this meeting here at the UN Security Council was ongoing. The president saying if Russia is sincere about addressing our respective concerns through dialogue, the United States and our allies and partners will continue to engage in good faith If instead Russia chooses to walk away from diplomacy and attack Ukraine, Russia will bear the responsibility and it will face swift and severe consequences. And we of course know that the United States and its European partners working very closely together on a package of sanctions that would be imposed were Russia to invade Ukraine, Francis.
Well, please follow that situation for us, Sherwin, worrying to many around the world. While we've got you, can we change focus and get an update on the recent coup in Burkina Faso? So the UN Chief and the High Commissioner for Human Rights have been clear in their condemnation of the military's overthrow of the democratic government. ECOWAS and the AU have suspended the country from those organizations. What is the latest from the UN?
Well, there's certainly no appetite for suspending Burkina Faso here at the United Nations. It would require a recommendation from the UN Security Council that would then have to be implemented by the General Assembly for Burkina Faso, for example, to be suspended from the functions and workings of the General Assembly. So that's certainly not on the cards. But the Secretary General speaking on camera last week, condemning this coup, calling for the return of civilian authority, the release of various government detainees, including the president. This was his spokesperson speaking on Friday, Francis, talking about some of the engagements that were going to happen this past weekend. Watch.
The Secretary General continues to closely follow the situation there. He takes note of the suspension of Burkina Faso from ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, as well as his decision to deploy a mission of the Regional Chiefs of Defense staff to the country tomorrow, followed by a ministerial delegation next week. The Special Representative of the Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Mohamed Saleh Anadif, will travel to Burkina Faso over the weekend on a good offices mission. Mr. Anadif will also join the ministerial mission along with the President of the ECOWAS Commission and the Foreign Minister of Ghana. This will take place ahead of a planned ECOWAS summit in Accra on the 3rd of February to further discuss the situation in the country. The Secretary General continues to call for calm, the release of President Gabore and other officials that have been detained, as well as for a return to constitutional order in Burkina Faso.
So I think what you're going to see, Francis, is a deference to the processes within the economic community of West African states known as ECOWAS. They are very forward-thinking in how they deal with coups in that region. But of course, worth also noting that tomorrow will mark the one-year anniversary of the coup in Myanmar. So as these things go, these coups are certainly more, we're seeing greater numbers of coups around the world, a big concern for the UN Secretary General, but also the difficulty in resolving these coups after they take place. Of course, Myanmar will mark a one-year anniversary of its coup that ousted the government of Aung San Suu Kyi on the 1st of February last year. Francis?
All right, thank you for that tonight. SABC News correspondent in the United States for us, Sherwin Bryce-Pease.